The great station called Axis Prime floated in the darkness between stars. It was built in neutral space, far from any empire's territory, and it served as a meeting place for the powerful species of the galaxy. Today, it hosted the most important gathering in a century. Ambassador Elena Vasquez stood at the viewport of her small quarters and watched the ships arriving. They came in waves, each fleet more impressive than the last. The Valorian Dominion sent their golden warships, each one decorated with the symbols of 1,000 conquered worlds. The Cathari hegemony brought their black vessels that seemed to swallow light itself. The Syndicate of Ash arrived in ships covered with the bones of their enemies, a reminder of their brutal nature. The Therox Collective came in perfectly identical silver craft that moved as one mind. And finally, the Aranthi Empire sent their ancient vessels, ships that had traveled the stars when humanity still lived in caves. Elena counted them silently. Over 200 warships surrounded the station. They called it an honor guard, but she knew better. It was a threat. Her assistant, a young man named David Chen, entered the room with a tablet in his hands. His face was pale. Ambassador, the coalition has finished their preliminary discussions. They're ready to present their demands. Elena nodded slowly. She had expected this. For the past decade, humanity had been expanding into unclaimed systems at the edge of known space. They had built colonies, established trade routes, and grown stronger with each passing year. The great empires had watched this growth with growing concern. A species that had only discovered faster than light travel 200 years ago was not supposed to advance this quickly. "What do our intelligence reports say about their military strength?" Elena asked. David scrolled through his tablet. Combined, the five empires command approximately 60,000 warships. The Valorians alone have 15,000. The Cathari have 12,000. The others maintain smaller but still significant fleets. And us? Our official fleet numbers 800 vessels, Ambassador. Elena smiled slightly at the word official, but said nothing. She straightened her uniform, a simple blue outfit with Earth's symbol on the shoulder, and walked toward the door. Let's go hear what they have to say. The Great Hall of Axis Prime was built to impress and intimidate. Its ceiling stretched so high that clouds actually formed near the top. Thousands of seats rose in circles around a central platform, and today those seats were filled with representatives from across the galaxy. The five empires sat in positions of honor, their delegations large and richly dressed. Humanity's delegation consisted of Elena and 4 aides, seated in a small section near the bottom. The Valorian High Speaker rose to address the assembly. He was tall, nearly 3 meters, with golden skin and 4 arms that moved gracefully as he spoke. His voice boomed through the hall. "We have gathered today to address a matter of galactic security. The species known as humanity has expanded beyond acceptable limits. Their growth threatens the stability of established borders. Their technology advances at an unnatural rate. Their intentions remain unclear." Elena kept her face neutral, but inside she felt a cold anger building. Unnatural rate, as if humanity had cheated somehow, as if they had not earned every advancement through hard work and sacrifice. The Cathari representative spoke next. She was shorter than the Valorian, with dark blue skin and eyes that reflected light like mirrors. "Our intelligence services have monitored human activities for decades. They are building shipyards and systems they claim are for civilian use. They are mining resources at rates far exceeding their stated needs. They are hiding something." The Syndicate of Ash delegate simply laughed, a harsh sound that echoed through the hall. His species resembled walking skeletons covered in gray flesh, and his voice sounded like grinding metal. "They are preparing for war. Any fool can see it. The question is whether we wait for them to attack or strike first while we still can." Elena felt David tense beside her. She placed a calming hand on his arm. The Therox Collective spoke through one of their drones, a floating sphere that projected a calm, genderless voice. "We do not advocate for immediate military action. However, we agree that humanity must be contained. Their current trajectory poses unacceptable risks to galactic order." Finally, the Aranthi representative rose. He was ancient, his purple skin wrinkled with age, his movements slow and deliberate. The Aranthi were the oldest spacefaring species in the galaxy, with records stretching back millions of years. When he spoke, everyone listened. We have seen young species rise before. Some grew to become valuable members of galactic civilization. Others became threats that had to be eliminated. Humanity stands at a crossroads. The choice they make today will determine their future. The Valorian High Speaker nodded and turned to face Elena directly. Ambassador Vasquez, the Coalition of Five presents the following terms. Humanity will surrender all colonies established in the past 50 years. Humanity will accept military oversight from a coalition peacekeeping force. Humanity will limit its fleet to no more than 200 vessels. Compliance with these terms will result in humanity's acceptance as a junior member of the galactic community. Refusal will be met with united military action. The hall fell silent. Every eye turned to the small human delegation. Elena rose slowly from her seat. She was short by galactic standards, barely reaching the shoulder of most species present. Her hair was gray, her face lined with age. She looked exactly like what she was, a grandmother who had spent her life in diplomatic service. She did not look like a threat. High Speaker, she said, her voice calm and clear, I must consult with my government before responding to such significant demands. I request 72 hours to communicate with Earth and receive instructions. The Valorian's forearms crossed in a gesture of impatience. You have 48 hours, Ambassador. Use them wisely. Elena bowed slightly. Thank you for your generosity. As she turned to leave, the Cathari representative called out, Ambassador, I hope you understand the reality of your situation. Your 800 ships cannot stand against our combined might. There is no scenario in which humanity survives a war with us. Accept our terms and your species will continue to exist. Refuse, and you will be remembered only as a cautionary tale. Elena paused at the door. She turned back and looked at the assembled representatives of the five great empires. For just a moment, something flickered in her eyes. It might have been fear, it might have been sadness, or it might have been something else entirely. I understand the reality of our situation perfectly, she said. I wonder if you do. She left before anyone could respond. Back in her quarters, Elena immediately activated a secure communication device. It was human technology, using encryption methods that no other species had managed to crack. Within seconds, she was connected to Earth's strategic command. A familiar face appeared on the screen. Fleet Admiral James Okonkwo, the commander of humanity's military forces, looked tired but alert. His dark skin was illuminated by the blue glow of multiple displays behind him. Ambassador, we've been monitoring the summit. I take it they weren't interested in negotiation. They want us to surrender most of our territory, accept occupation, and reduce our fleet to nothing, Elena reported. They gave us 48 hours to comply. Admiral Okonkwo nodded slowly. And your assessment? They're afraid, James. Afraid of how fast we've grown. Afraid of what we might become. They want to cut us down while they still think they can. They're right to be afraid, the Admiral said quietly, but not for the reasons they imagine. Elena glanced out her viewport at the assembled alien fleets. Intelligence reports say our ships have been repositioning for weeks. The empires have noticed. They think we're preparing to flee. Let them think that. Admiral Okonkwo leaned closer to the screen. Elena, the Council has been in emergency session since the summit began. The vote was unanimous. If the coalition refuses to back down, we proceed with option Omega. Elena closed her eyes for a moment. She had known this was coming. She had hoped it wouldn't be necessary. How much do we reveal? Enough to make them reconsider, not enough to make them panic and do something stupid. The Admiral paused. The Council wants you to make one more attempt at peaceful resolution. Make them a counteroffer. Give them a chance to walk away with their pride intact. And if they refuse, then we show them why that was a mistake. Elena ended the communication and sat in silence for a long moment. Outside her window, the lights of 100 alien warships glittered like stars. Those ships represented the combined military might of civilizations that had ruled the galaxy for thousands of years. They thought they were powerful. They thought they understood strength. They had no idea what was coming. Elena pulled out a personal tablet and began composing her message to the coalition. She would offer them peace. She would give them every opportunity to choose wisdom over aggression. But as she wrote, her other hand rested on a small device attached to her belt. It looked like a simple communication unit. It was actually a trigger connected to the largest military mobilization in human history. She hoped she wouldn't have to use it. But hope, she had learned long ago, was not a strategy. 48 hours. That was how long the galaxy had before everything changed. Elena finished her message and sent it. Then she looked out at the alien fleets one more time. "You have no idea who you're threatening," she whispered to herself, "but you're about to find out." In the darkness of space, far from any watching eyes, human ships were moving. Not fleeing, not hiding. They were taking positions, waiting, ready. The great empires of the galaxy had made their demands. Now they would learn the price of underestimating humanity. Deep beneath the Swiss Alps, buried under 3 kilometers of rock and steel, lay the most secret facility on Earth. Strategic Command had existed for over a century, but fewer than 10,000 people knew its true purpose. To the rest of humanity, it was simply a military coordination center. In reality, it was the beating heart of a secret that had been kept for nearly 200 years. Fleet Admiral James Okonkwo walked through corridors that hummed with energy. Screens lined every wall, showing data from across human space. Officers worked at stations, their faces lit by the blue glow of displays that tracked ship movements, resource flows, and threat assessments. Everything looked normal. Everything looked routine. But nothing about today was routine. Admiral Okonkwo entered the main briefing room, where the United Earth Council had gathered for an emergency session. 12 faces looked up at him, representing every major nation and territory on Earth. They were old faces, young faces, faces marked by worry and determination. They were the people who carried humanity's greatest secret. "The coalition has rejected Ambassador Vasquez's counter-proposal," Okonkwo announced without preamble. "They have restated their demands and reduced our response time to 24 hours. Their fleets are beginning to move toward our border systems." Council President Maria Santos leaned forward. She was a small woman with iron-gray hair and eyes that had seen too much. "How many ships?" "Initial strike force of 8,000 vessels, drawn primarily from Valorian and Cathari fleets. Additional forces are mobilizing behind them. We estimate they plan to hit our outer colonies first, destroy our shipyards, then push toward Earth itself. And they still believe we only have 800 ships," said Councillor Chen Wei, the representative from the Asian Federation. "They believe what we wanted them to believe," Okonkwo confirmed. "For 2 centuries, we have hidden our true capabilities. We have let them see only what we chose to show them. Now we must decide how much to reveal." He touched a control, and the main display changed. Instead of showing the galaxy as it was, it showed the galaxy as only a handful of humans knew it to be. Red dots appeared across the map, thousands of them, in systems that officially held nothing but empty space. Hidden shipyards orbited dead stars. Secret fleets waited in dimensional pockets that alien sensors could not detect. Military bases existed inside hollowed-out asteroids, beneath the surfaces of barren moons, in places no enemy would think to look. "Current active military strength," Okonkwo said quietly, "is 12,467 vessels. An additional 3,000 are in various stages of construction and will be combat-ready within 6 months." The numbers hung in the air. 12,000 ships, not 800, 12,000. "How is this possible?" asked Councillor Yuki Tanaka, though she already knew the answer. They all knew, but sometimes the truth needed to be spoken aloud. Okonkwo changed the display again. Now it showed images from humanity's past, from the early days of interstellar exploration. 193 years ago, the exploration vessel Pathfinder discovered the ruins of an alien civilization in the Kepler system. We called them the architects. The images showed vast structures floating in space, technology so advanced it made human achievements look like children's toys. Dead cities stretched across entire moons. Ships the size of small planets drifted in eternal silence. The architects ruled this galaxy millions of years ago. Their empire spanned hundreds of thousands of star systems. Their technology was so far beyond anything we had ever imagined that our scientists could barely comprehend it. And they were destroyed, President Santos added. Their own power consumed them. Yes, Okonkwo nodded gravely. From what we could piece together from their records, the architects fell into endless wars of conquest. They built weapons of unimaginable destruction and turned those weapons on each other. In the end, they wiped themselves from existence. Only their ruins remained. But their technology survived, Counselor Chen said. Much of it, yes. And for nearly 2 centuries, we have been studying it, learning from it, adapting it to our own use. Okonkwo's voice was heavy with the weight of what he was revealing. The great empires of the galaxy believe they represent the height of technological achievement. They are wrong. They are children playing with toys compared to what the architects built. The display shifted to show schematics of human warships, but not the ships the galaxy knew. These were different, larger, more elegant, more dangerous. Our architect-class vessels can enter a state we call ghost transit. They pass through solid matter as if it were not there. Our weapons include gravity lances that can tear planets from their orbits, quantum disruptors that collapse any known shield technology instantly, and temporal stabilizers that allow our ships to operate in conditions that would destroy any other vessel. Counselor Tanaka stared at the schematics. If we have this power, why haven't we used it? Why have we hidden for so long? Because power without wisdom is destruction. Okonkwo's voice softened. We studied the architects' history carefully. They had the strength to rule the galaxy, and that strength destroyed them. They conquered because they could, not because they should. In the end, they had no allies, no friends, only enemies and subjects. When their civil wars began, there was no one left who would help them. President Santos stood and walked to the display. She touched the image of an architect ruin, her fingers passing through the holographic projection. Our founders made a decision 2 centuries ago. They decided that humanity would not follow the architect's path. We would build our strength in secret, not to conquer, but to protect. We would let the galaxy believe we were weak, and we would use that time to prepare for the day when we might have to defend ourselves. That day has come, Okonkwo said. The coalition believes they can bully us into submission. They believe their 60,000 ships can overwhelm our 800. They are about to learn how wrong they are. How much do we show them? Counselor Chen asked. Okonkwo considered the question carefully. If we reveal everything, we become the threat they fear. Every empire in the galaxy will unite against us, not out of aggression, but out of terror. We would win any war they started, but the cost would be measured in billions of lives. And if we show too little, then they might not believe us. They might think we're bluffing. They might attack anyway, and we would have to destroy them to survive. President Santos turned to face the council. We show them enough to terrify them, but not enough to make them desperate. We demonstrate our capability without demonstrating our full power. We give them a chance to back down with their pride intact. And if they don't, Counselor Tanaka asked, then we do what we have always prepared to do. Santos's voice was steady. We protect humanity. We defend our people. And we try very hard not to become the monsters we have the power to be. The council voted. The decision was unanimous. Admiral Okonkwo sent the order. Across human space in hidden bases and secret shipyards, crews who had trained for decades received their activation codes. Ships that had never been seen by alien eyes powered up their engines. Weapons that existed only in nightmares came online. In the dimensional pockets where the main fleet waited, over 3,000 warships began moving toward predetermined coordinates. They would arrive at the Coalition's staging area in exactly 6 hours. They would not fire first. They would not attack. They would simply appear, a fraction of humanity's true strength made visible for the first time. Admiral Okonkwo watched the fleet movements on his display. Each dot represented a ship crewed by men and women who had sworn to protect humanity. Each ship carried weapons that could shatter worlds. And each captain had standing orders that seemed almost impossible to believe. Do not fire unless fired upon. Do not destroy unless destruction is unavoidable. Show them what we can do, but give them every chance to choose peace. It was the hardest kind of warfare. The kind where you had overwhelming power and chose not to use it. The kind where victory meant never having to fight at all. Okonkwo thought about the architects in their empty ruins. They had built an empire of fear and force, and that empire had crumbled to dust. Humanity would build something different, something better, if the galaxy would let them. He opened a channel to Ambassador Vasquez on Axis Prime. Her face appeared on his screen, calm and composed despite the chaos around her. Ambassador, the fleet will be in position in 6 hours. You'll have your demonstration? Elena nodded. I'll arrange a meeting with the coalition commanders. They're expecting me to deliver our surrender. They're in for a surprise. Yes. Elena's eyes held something that might have been sorrow. I just hope they're smart enough to accept the offer we're about to make. I don't want to see what happens if they're not. Okongwo understood. They all understood. Humanity had the power to win any war the galaxy could throw at them. The question was whether they could win without losing themselves in the process. The next 24 hours would provide the answer. In secret bases across human space, the fleet continued its preparations. Thousands of ships moved through the darkness, each one carrying the hopes and fears of an entire species. They were not conquerors. They were not invaders. They were guardians, protectors, defenders. But if the galaxy forced their hand, they would show the great empires what humanity was truly capable of. And the galaxy would never be the same. The Valorian border system of Keth 7 was supposed to demonstrate the coalition's overwhelming strength. 8,000 warships had gathered there, representing the combined might of 5 great empires. Golden Valorian cruisers flew alongside black Cathari destroyers. Syndicate of Ash Raiders patrolled the outer edges of the formation. Therox collective vessels moved in perfect synchronization, their movements controlled by a single hive mind. Oranthi command ships, ancient and powerful, anchored the center of the fleet. It was the largest military gathering in galactic history. It was meant to terrify humanity into submission. Ambassador Elena Vasquez's shuttle approached the Valorian flagship alone. The tiny vessel looked like an insect next to the massive warships surrounding it. Coalition officers watched it approach with barely concealed contempt. One old woman in a small ship. That was all humanity had sent to face their judgment. Elena docked with the flagship and walked through its golden corridors with her head held high. Valorian guards towered over her, their 4 arms holding weapons that could vaporize her in an instant. She did not flinch. She did not hurry. She walked like someone who had nothing to fear. The conference chamber aboard the flagship was designed to intimidate. Its ceiling rose 20 meters high, decorated with murals depicting Valorian victories across 1,000 years of conquest. The commanders of all 5 empires sat at a curved table on a raised platform, looking down at the single human chair placed below them. Elena took her seat and looked up at the faces above her. She saw arrogance in the Valorian High Commander's golden eyes. She saw cold calculation in the Cathari Admiral's mirror-like gaze. She saw hunger for violence in the Syndicate Commander's skeletal face. She saw calm indifference in the Therox drone's mechanical sensors. And she saw something else in the ancient Oranthi Lord Admiral's expression. Something that might have been curiosity or perhaps concern. Ambassador Vasquez, the Valorian High Commander began, his voice filling the chamber. You requested this meeting. We have graciously allowed you one final opportunity to accept our terms. Your deadline has passed. Your fleet remains at 800 vessels. Your colonies remain occupied. You have nothing to bargain with. Elena nodded slowly. I appreciate your willingness to meet with me, High Commander. I have been instructed by my government to present a counter-proposal. Laughter rippled through the room. The Syndicate Commander's harsh voice cut through it. Counter-proposal? You are in no position to propose anything human. You should be begging for mercy. Perhaps, Elena said calmly. But before we discuss terms, I would like to offer the Coalition a different path forward. What path? The Cathari Admiral asked, her tone dripping with contempt. Withdrawal. You withdraw your ultimatum. You return to your territories. And we all pretend this unfortunate confrontation never happened. Elena spread her hands. No demands. No reparations. No humiliation for either side. Simply peace. The Valorian High Commander stared at her in disbelief. Then he began to laugh. It was a deep, booming sound that echoed through the chamber. The other commanders joined him, all except the Oranthi Lord Admiral, who remained silent. "You are either very brave or very foolish," the High Commander said when his laughter subsided. "Look out that viewport, Ambassador. See our fleet. 8,000 warships, and this is merely our forward force. We have 60,000 more across our territories. Your 800 ships would not survive the first hour of battle. What possible leverage do you imagine you possess?" Elena's expression did not change. "I was hoping you would ask that question." She reached into her pocket and pulled out a small device. It looked like nothing more than a communication unit. The guards around the room tensed, but the High Commander waved them back. "Is that supposed to frighten us? A human toy?" "No," Elena said. "It's supposed to show you something." She pressed a button on the device. For a moment, nothing happened. The coalition commanders exchanged confused glances. Then the alarm started. Throughout the Valorian flagship, warning lights began flashing red. Officers shouted reports over communication channels. The tactical displays that lined the conference chamber walls suddenly filled with new contacts, thousands of them, appearing from nowhere. The Valorian High Commander lurched to his feet. "What is this?" Elena remained seated, her voice calm. "This is humanity's first message." Through the viewport, the coalition commanders watched in stunned silence as reality itself seemed to tear open. Points of light appeared in the darkness of space, expanding into swirling portals of energy. Ships emerged from those portals, ship after ship after ship, in numbers that should have been impossible. They were not like any vessels the coalition had ever seen. Their designs were elegant and alien, their hulls covered in patterns that seemed to shift and flow like living things. They moved with a grace that made even the most advanced coalition ships look clumsy, and they were everywhere. 3,000 human warships surrounded the coalition fleet in less than 5 minutes. They did not fire. They did not broadcast threats. They simply took positions, their weapons pointed at the now trapped coalition vessels. The Kethari admiral was the first to find her voice. 3,000 ships. Your fleet was supposed to be 800. Our visible fleet was 800, Elena corrected. The fleet you were supposed to see. The fleet we wanted you to see. "This is a trick," the Syndicate commander snarled. "Holograms, decoys. You cannot have hidden this many ships." Elena shook her head sadly. "Look at your sensor readings. Your instruments don't know how to classify our ships because they've never encountered technology like ours. They're not holograms. They're very, very real." The Therox drone spoke, its voice unusually uncertain. "These vessel configurations are unknown. Their power signatures exceed any recorded parameters. Their weapon systems appear to be impossible," Elena suggested. "That's what our scientists said too, when we first discovered the technology." The Oranthi Lord Admiral spoke for the first time. His ancient voice was barely above a whisper, but it silenced everyone else in the room. "Those ship designs. I know them. I have seen them before." He rose from his seat, his old body trembling. He walked to the viewport and stared at the human fleet with eyes that had witnessed millions of years of history. "The architects," he breathed. "These are architect designs, modified, adapted, but unmistakable." He turned to Elena, and for the first time she saw fear in an alien's eyes. "How? The architects died millions of years before your species even existed. How do you have their technology?" "We found their ruins," Elena said simply. "We studied them. We learned from them. And we learned from their mistakes." "What mistakes?" the Valorian High Commander demanded. "They conquered everything. They ruled through fear and force. And in the end, they destroyed themselves because they had no one left who didn't hate them." Elena stood and walked toward the viewport. "We decided to take a different path." The tactical displays flickered again. New reports came flooding in from across the galaxy. Human ships were appearing at the homeworlds of all 5 empires. Not attacking, just present. Watching. A silent message that could not be misunderstood. "You wanted to know what leverage we possess," Elena said, turning back to face the stunned commanders. "This is approximately 3% of our actual military capability. We have weapons your scientists would call physically impossible. We have ships that can pass through solid matter. We have the power to end this war before it begins, decisively and permanently. She paused, letting her words sink in. But we don't want to. We have never wanted to. For 200 years, we hid our strength because we hoped we would never have to use it. We wanted to grow peacefully. We wanted to be your neighbors, not your enemies. You forced this confrontation. You demanded our submission. You threatened our existence. Elena walked back to her chair and sat down. The coalition commanders remained standing, their faces showing varying degrees of shock, anger, and fear. So here is humanity's counterproposal. You withdraw your forces, you abandon your ultimatum, you return to your territories, and we return to ours. No reparations, no punishment. No humiliation. She spread her hands. We are offering you a chance to walk away from this with your pride and your fleets intact. I strongly suggest you take it. The Valorian High Commander's golden face had turned pale. His four hands gripped the table in front of him. And if we refuse? Elena's expression was sad. Then we will do what we have prepared to do for 2 centuries. We will protect ourselves. We will defend our people. And when it's over, you will understand why we tried so hard to avoid this outcome. Silence fell over the conference chamber. The coalition commanders looked at each other, at the tactical displays, at the impossible fleet surrounding them. Everything they believed about the balance of power in the galaxy had just been proven wrong. The Aranthi Lord Admiral returned to his seat, his ancient face troubled. I have lived for thousands of years, he said quietly. I have seen empires rise and fall. I have watched species burn themselves to extinction. And I have always wondered what happened to the architects, why their great civilization vanished so completely. He looked at Elena with something approaching respect. Now I understand. They built their empire on conquest and fear. When they fell, no one mourned them. No one remembered them kindly. They left nothing behind but ruins and warnings. And you don't want that fate for humanity, the Cathari admiral said slowly, understanding beginning to dawn in her mirror eyes. We don't want that fate for anyone, Elena replied. We don't want subjects. We don't want slaves. We want neighbors. We want partners. We want a galaxy where species work together instead of fighting for dominance. She stood again and looked at each commander in turn. You have a choice. You can be the enemies who forced us to reveal what we can do, or you can be the leaders who chose wisdom over pride, peace over war. The decision is yours. The Valorian High Commander slowly sat down. His arrogance had evaporated, replaced by something far more dangerous to his ego: uncertainty. We need time to consult with our governments, he said finally. You have 1 hour, Elena replied. Then I need your answer. She turned and walked toward the door. The guards made no move to stop her. They were too busy staring at the tactical displays, watching the impossible human fleet hold position around them like a fist waiting to close. Elena paused at the doorway. Oh, and commanders, please don't try anything foolish. Our weapons are faster than your reflexes. Our ships are already locked onto your power cores. If anyone fires, this confrontation will be over in seconds. She smiled slightly. It was not a threatening smile. It was almost sad. And I really don't want to explain to my grandchildren that I had to start a war because 5 empires couldn't accept that humans were stronger than they expected. She left them in silence, walking back to her shuttle through corridors filled with pale, frightened faces. In the darkness of space, 3,000 human warships waited, and across the galaxy, millions more remained hidden, hoping they would never be needed. The next hour would determine everything. The hour passed slowly aboard the Valorian flagship. In the conference chamber, the coalition commanders argued and debated while their advisors fed them constant streams of data about the impossible human fleet surrounding them. Every piece of information only deepened their confusion and fear. The Cathari admiral studied her tactical displays with growing unease. Our sensors cannot penetrate their hull plating. We have no idea what weapons they carry. We have no idea what their ships are capable of. We know they appeared from nowhere, the Therox drone reported. Our instruments detected no conventional faster-than-light signatures. Whatever drive technology they use, it is beyond our understanding. The Valorian High Commander paced the chamber, his forearms clasped behind his back. His pride had taken a devastating blow, but he was not yet ready to surrender. Perhaps they are bluffing. Perhaps these ships are all they have. Perhaps they have shown us everything and hope we will be too afraid to test them. You would risk our fleet on it, perhaps? The Cathari admiral asked sharply. You saw the same reports I did. Human ships appeared at our homeworlds, at our capitals. If they had wanted to attack, they could have struck before we even knew they were there. The architects were the most advanced civilization in galactic history, the Aranthi Lord Admiral said quietly. His voice was heavy with the weight of ancient memories. My people have legends about them, warnings passed down through millions of years. They built weapons that could tear holes in space itself. They created ships that moved between dimensions as easily as we move between rooms. He looked at the human vessels visible through the viewport. If the humans have truly mastered architect technology, then the ambassador was not exaggerating. She was being modest. The syndicate commander had remained silent since Elena's departure. His skeletal face was unreadable, but his gray flesh had taken on an even paler shade. Now he spoke, his grinding voice filled with barely contained rage. This is unacceptable. For centuries, my people have taken what we wanted through strength. We have never bowed to threats. We will not start now. Commander, the Cathari admiral said carefully, this is not a threat we can overcome through courage alone. The humans have shown us ships, the syndicate commander interrupted. Ships can be destroyed. I do not care how advanced their technology is. I will not kneel before a species that was still crawling in the mud when my ancestors ruled the stars. What are you suggesting? The Valorian High Commander asked. The syndicate commander's eyes burned with hatred. I am suggesting we test their resolve. They claim they don't want war. They claim they want peace. Let's see if that's true. Before anyone could stop him, he activated his personal communicator. All syndicate vessels, this is Commander Vex. Open fire on the nearest human ships. Full weapons release. Show them what the Ash can do. Chaos erupted in the conference chamber. The other commanders shouted protests, tried to countermand the order, but it was too late. Through the viewport, they watched in horror as 2,000 syndicate ships broke formation and accelerated toward the human fleet, their weapons charging for combat. Elena was halfway back to her shuttle when she received the alert. Admiral Okonkwo's voice came through her earpiece, calm despite the circumstances. Ambassador, the syndicate is attacking. Our ships are moving to defensive positions. Casualties? Elena asked, her heart pounding. None yet. We're waiting for your order. Elena closed her eyes for a moment. She had hoped so desperately that it wouldn't come to this. She had offered them every chance to choose peace. Defensive protocol only, she said firmly. Disable, don't destroy. Minimum force necessary. Understood, Ambassador. Engaging now. In the space around Keth 7, the battle began. The syndicate ships opened fire with everything they had. Plasma cannons sent streams of superheated matter toward the human vessels. Missile bays released thousands of warheads. Energy beams cut through the darkness of space. None of it mattered. The human ships simply weren't there when the weapons arrived. They shifted position faster than any sensor could track, sliding through space as if they were made of light instead of metal. Syndicate weapons passed through empty space where human vessels had been moments before. Then the humans returned fire. Their weapons made no sound in the vacuum of space, but the results were impossible to miss. Beams of energy struck syndicate ships and passed through their shields as if those shields didn't exist. But they didn't destroy. They didn't kill. Instead, they targeted specific systems with surgical precision. Power cores went dark. Engines failed. Weapon systems simply stopped functioning. Ship after ship fell silent, tumbling through space without propulsion or control, their crews alive but helpless. The battle lasted exactly 4.7 seconds. When it was over, every single syndicate vessel was disabled. Not one hull had been breached. Not one crew member had died. 2,000 warships had been reduced to drifting wreckage without a single casualty on either side. In the conference chamber, the coalition commanders watched in stunned silence. The syndicate commander stood frozen, his gray flesh now nearly white with shock. Impossible, he whispered. We fired everything we had. Everything. The Aranthi Lord Admiral slowly rose from his seat. He walked to the viewport and stared at the disabled syndicate fleet, at the human ships moving calmly through the debris. Not impossible, he said quietly. Inevitable. The architects built their technology to end wars, not just win them. Weapons that could destroy without killing. Ships that could conquer without casualties. He turned to face the other commanders. The humans learned well from their predecessors. Admiral Okonkwo's voice suddenly filled the conference chamber, broadcast on all frequencies. His tone was calm, almost gentle. To the Coalition of Five, the Syndicate of Ash has attacked humanity under flag of truce. By every law of war, we would be justified in destroying their fleet. We would be justified in retribution against their worlds. We claim no such right. The commanders exchanged confused glances. They had expected threats. They had expected demands. To the Syndicate crews currently drifting without power, rescue vessels are being dispatched by your allies. Your life support will last approximately 6 hours. We suggest you allow them to help you. Okonkwo paused. To Commander Vex of the Syndicate, your attack has failed. Your ships are disabled, but your crews are alive. That was a choice we made. Remember it. Elena's voice came next, speaking from her shuttle as it returned to the flagship. The offer I made remains open. Withdraw your ultimatum. Return to your territories. Let this end with no more violence. The Valorian High Commander collapsed into his chair. His golden skin had lost its luster. Why? He asked, his voice barely audible. You could have destroyed them. You could have destroyed all of us. Why didn't you? Elena answered as her shuttle docked with the flagship. Because that's not who we are. That's not who we want to be. She re-entered the conference chamber minutes later. The guards didn't even try to stop her. They were too busy staring at the tactical displays, watching human rescue ships help evacuate the disabled Syndicate vessels. The architects conquered everything, Elena said, walking to the center of the room. They ruled through fear. They destroyed anyone who opposed them. And in the end, they had nothing but enemies. When their empire fell, it fell completely. No allies came to help them. No friends mourned their passing. They disappeared, leaving nothing behind but ruins and a warning. She looked at each commander in turn. We found that warning. We studied their history. We learned from their mistakes. And we decided that humanity would be different. Different how? The Cathari Admiral asked. We built our power in secret, not to conquer, but to protect. We developed weapons that could disable without killing, shields that could defend without attacking. We created the strongest military force in galactic history, and we hid it, hoping we would never have to use it. Elena sat down in her chair, the same small seat that had seemed so weak an hour ago. We wanted to grow peacefully. We wanted to trade with you, learn from you, maybe even become friends with you. But you saw our growth as a threat. You demanded our submission. You forced us to reveal what we had been hiding. The Aranthi Lord Admiral nodded slowly. And now we know what you can do. Now you know what we can do, Elena agreed. But more importantly, now you know what we chose not to do. We could have killed every Syndicate crew member. We chose not to. We could be bombarding your homeworlds right now. We're not. We could demand your surrender, your territories, your resources. We're asking only for peace. She leaned forward, her gray eyes intense. What does that tell you about humanity? What does that tell you about what we want? Silence filled the chamber. The commanders looked at each other, at their tactical displays, at the human fleet that could destroy them all, and had chosen mercy instead. The Syndicate commander sank into his chair. His skeletal face was twisted with emotions he had never experienced before. Shame, confusion, and something that might have been gratitude. His crews were alive. They should have been dead. The humans had every right to kill them. Why? He asked, echoing the Valorian's earlier question. I attacked you. I tried to destroy your ships. Why would you save my people? Elena's expression softened. Because your crews weren't the ones who made that decision. You were. And because killing them wouldn't bring us peace. It would only bring us another enemy. She stood and walked to the viewport. We don't want enemies. We've spent 200 years preparing to defend ourselves because we knew this day might come. We knew that eventually someone would see us as a threat and try to destroy us. But we never wanted to fight. We still don't. What do you want? The Valorian High Commander asked. Elena turned back to face them. I want you to go home. I want you to tell your governments what happened here. I want you to explain that humanity is not a threat to be contained, but a potential ally to be welcomed." She paused. "And I want you to help us build something better than what the architects built. Something that lasts. Something worth remembering." The Aranthi Lord Admiral rose from his seat. He was the oldest being in the room, the representative of a species that had watched the galaxy change for millions of years. When he spoke, his voice carried the weight of ages. "My people have a saying, true power is not the ability to destroy, but the wisdom to build. For millions of years, I wondered if any species would ever truly understand that." He walked toward Elena and stopped before her. Then slowly he bowed his ancient head. "Today, I believe I have found my answer." One by one, the other commanders rose. The Cathari admiral bowed. The Therox drone dipped in acknowledgement. Even the Velorian High Commander inclined his golden head. Only the Syndicate commander remained seated, but his eyes had changed. The hatred was gone, replaced by something more complicated, something that might someday become respect. "We accept your terms," the Velorian High Commander said finally. "We will withdraw our forces, we will abandon our ultimatum, and we will report to our governments that humanity is not what we believe them to be." Elena smiled, and for the first time since the summit began, it reached her eyes. That's all we ever wanted. Outside the viewport, the human fleet began to move. Not attacking, not threatening, simply returning to their positions, guardians who had protected without destroying, victors who sought no conquest. The great empires of the galaxy had learned a lesson they would never forget. Humanity was not weak. Humanity was not helpless. But more importantly, humanity was not a monster. They were something far more dangerous to the old ways of conquest and domination. They were an example. 5 years had passed since the confrontation at Keth 7. 5 years since humanity had revealed a fraction of its true power. 5 years since the galaxy had changed forever. The Great Assembly Hall on Earth was unlike any building humanity had ever constructed. It rose from the shores of Lake Geneva, a masterpiece of architecture that combined human design with subtle touches of architect technology. Its walls were made of a material that shifted color with the light, and its central dome opened to the sky, allowing natural sunlight to illuminate the thousands of delegates gathered below. Secretary General Elena Vasquez stood at the central podium and looked out at an audience that would have seemed impossible just a few years ago. Representatives from 47 species filled the curved seats, their varied forms creating a tapestry of galactic diversity. Valorians sat beside Cathari. Therox drones hovered near Oranthi elders. Even the Syndicate of Ash had sent delegates, their skeletal faces no longer twisted with hatred, but with something approaching hope. This was the Terran Accords Assembly, not an empire, not a coalition, a community. 5 years ago, Elena began, her voice carrying through the hall, humanity faced a choice. We had been threatened with destruction by the most powerful military forces in the galaxy. We had the capability to respond with overwhelming force, to crush our enemies and establish dominance through fear. She paused, letting her words sink in. We chose differently. We revealed our strength, but we also revealed our intentions. We showed that power does not have to mean conquest. We demonstrated that victory does not require destruction. And in doing so, we invited the galaxy to imagine a different future. The Oranthi Lord Admiral sat in a position of honor near the front of the hall. He was even older now, his purple skin more wrinkled than ever, but his eyes remained sharp and clear. He had become one of humanity's greatest advocates in the years since Keth 7, using his ancient wisdom to help build bridges between species that had been enemies for millennia. Today, Elena continued, 47 species have signed the Terran Accords, not because they were forced to, not because they feared our weapons, but because they chose to believe in what we are building together. She gestured to the assembly around her. Look at this hall. Look at who sits beside you. 5 years ago, many of you considered each other enemies. Your ancestors fought wars that lasted centuries. Your cultures taught hatred and suspicion of outsiders. Her voice softened. Now you sit together. You trade together. Your children study in the same academies. Your scientists collaborate on projects that benefit everyone. This is what humanity wanted from the beginning. Not subjects, not servants, partners. In the rows reserved for human delegates, Admiral James Okonkwo watched Elena speak with pride in his eyes. He had retired from active military command 2 years ago, but he remained an advisor to the Accords Assembly. His work now focused not on preparing for war, but on ensuring that humanity's hidden fleet would never be needed again. The fleet still existed, of course. It still waited in dimensional pockets, in secret bases, ready to defend humanity and its allies if necessary. But with each passing year, with each new species that joined the Accords, the possibility of that fleet being used grew smaller. Elena's speech continued. Some have asked why humanity keeps its full military strength hidden, why even now we don't reveal everything we have. The answer is simple. We hope we never have to. She looked directly at the Syndicate delegation. Commander Vex had been replaced years ago, but his successor had proven surprisingly willing to embrace the new order. The Syndicate still valued strength, but they had learned that strength could take many forms. The architects built the mightiest civilization this galaxy has ever known. They had power beyond imagination, and they used that power to conquer, to dominate, to destroy. In the end, their power consumed them. They left nothing behind but ruins and a warning. Elena's voice grew stronger. Humanity found that warning. We studied it. We learned from it. And we made a promise to ourselves. We would not follow their path. We would build our strength not to rule but to protect. We would develop our technology not to destroy but to create. We would become powerful not to have subjects but to have friends. The assembly hall was completely silent. Every eye, every sensor, every consciousness was focused on the small human woman at the podium. That promise is why we're here today. That promise is why the Terran Accords exist. We wanted to prove that a species could have overwhelming power and choose not to use it. We wanted to show that strength and compassion could exist together. We wanted to build something the architects never could, an alliance based on trust instead of fear. She smiled, and it was a smile that had seen too much, hoped too often, and somehow still believed. I think we're succeeding. The applause began slowly, from a single Aranthi delegate, then spread like a wave through the assembly. Species that had been enemies for thousands of years rose to their feet together. The sound echoed through the great hall, a symphony of hope from voices that had once sung only of war. Later that evening, Elena stood on a balcony overlooking Lake Geneva. The assembly had concluded, the delegates had departed for their quarters, and the great hall had fallen silent. But she remained, watching the stars appear one by one in the darkening sky. Admiral Okonkwo found her there. He walked slowly now, his body showing its age, but his mind remained as sharp as ever. "Good speech," he said, standing beside her at the railing. "Thank you." Elena didn't turn from the stars. "Sometimes I still can't believe we made it this far." "We almost didn't." Okonkwo followed her gaze upward. "That day at Keth 7, when the Syndicate attacked, I had my finger on the trigger. I could have wiped them out in seconds. Part of me wanted to. But you didn't." "No," he smiled slightly, "because you reminded us what we were fighting for. Not victory, not dominance. A chance to build something better." Elena finally turned to face him. "Do you think they believe us? Truly believe that we won't use our power against them someday?" Okonkwo considered the question carefully. "Some do. The Aranthi, certainly. The Cathari are coming around. The Valorians will take longer. Their pride was badly wounded." He paused. "The important thing is that they're willing to try. 5 years ago, they would have destroyed us without hesitation. Now they send their children to our schools and their merchants to our markets. And the fleet? Still hidden. Still ready." Okonkwo's expression grew serious. "We learned from the architects, Elena. They built their empire on the assumption that power was the only thing that mattered. When that power was challenged, they had nothing else to fall back on." He gestured at the stars. "We're building something different. The fleet is our last resort, our guarantee that no one can threaten our existence. But the accords, the alliances, the friendships we're creating, those are our real strength. Someday, I hope, the fleet won't matter anymore. Not because we've dismantled it, but because we've made it unnecessary. Elena nodded slowly. That was always the dream. Build power so great that no one would dare attack us, then use that security to create something worth protecting. And we're doing it. Okonkwo placed a hand on her shoulder. Every species that joins the Accords, every trade agreement signed, every child who grows up learning that aliens can be friends instead of enemies. That's a victory. That's what we were really fighting for. They stood in silence for a moment, two old warriors watching the stars they had worked so hard to protect. I met with the architect research team this morning, Elena said eventually. They've made another breakthrough, a new form of energy generation that could revolutionize everything. Are we sharing it? Of course. That's part of the Accords. Any significant technological advancement is shared with all members. She smiled. The scientists estimate it will take the other species about 50 years to fully understand and implement it. But they'll get there eventually. And then they'll be a little closer to our level. That's the idea. Elena turned back to the lake, watching the lights of Geneva reflect on its surface. The architects hoarded their technology. They kept their secrets and used them to dominate everyone else. We're doing the opposite. We're lifting everyone up, slowly but surely. Some would call that dangerous, Okonkwo observed, giving potential rivals the means to challenge us. Some would. Elena's voice was firm. But we're not building rivals. We're building partners. And partners who are strong enough to stand beside us are more valuable than subjects who resent us. She thought about the hidden fleet, those thousands of ships waiting in dimensional pockets across human space. They were humanity's insurance policy, a guarantee that no matter what happened, the species would survive. But she hoped with every fiber of her being that they would never be needed again. The galaxy had feared what humanity could destroy. They had never imagined what humanity might choose to build instead. Elena looked up at the stars one final time. Somewhere out there, the remnants of the architect's civilization still drifted in eternal silence, monuments to what happened when power became an end in itself. Humanity had found those ruins and learned from them. They had built their own power, greater than anything the galaxy had seen since the architects fell. But they had also built something the architects never could. They had built trust. They had built friendship. They had built a community of species working together toward a future that benefited everyone. That was humanity's true military power. Not the ships or the weapons, though those remained ready if needed. The true power was the choice they made every day to reach out instead of strike, to build instead of destroy, to offer friendship instead of demanding submission. The great empires of the galaxy had taken a step back when humanity revealed its military strength, but they had stepped forward when humanity revealed its true nature, and the galaxy would never be the same. Elena smiled at the stars and whispered words that would have seemed impossible just 5 years ago. We did it. We actually did it. In the darkness of space, hidden from all eyes, the fleet continued its eternal vigil, waiting, hoping, knowing that its greatest victory would be never having to fight again. That was the real secret of humanity's power. Not the ability to destroy, the wisdom to choose not to.